that's a nice place to start, isn't it? Just me and Sarah were just talking about how we both want to just get absolutely jacked, ginormous.
The bigger the better.
The bigger the muscles, the better. Hello, everybody.
Hello and welcome back to the Beyond Condition podcast. So today, Steff and I are back in to talk about socializing as a bodybuilder, which is something we've just been talking about as well. Mm-hmm. And I definitely think, and I'm sure you'll agree, Steff, it's such a massive topic, and it's something that I've certainly dealt with myself, and a lot of the listeners would have. It's really, I guess, difficult sometimes to understand where you sit when you're trying your best as a bodybuilder to then be able to socialize as well.
Yeah, you're 100% right. You know, a lot of people sometimes kind of flip the switch into prep, and it's almost like, right, I'm now completely not going to do anything other than sleep, eat, repeat, train, and never see anyone, no social events, nothing, because it's just easier in their head. Or they'll think, you know, there's no point in me going and trying to socialize now because I'm in prep, and they disconnect the two. And I suppose the whole point of this topic today is for us to just discuss what socializing can look like, how it's been for us, and switching the mindset from your life doesn't stop just because you're on a bodybuilding prep, but it's managing ways of how to obviously go about it.
Yeah, because it definitely also then filters into off season as well. I find the tunnel vision that prep brings, it then starts to creep into the start of your off season, and it's really hard to then switch from prep into off season and accept that you can potentially incorporate meals out and bigger social events than perhaps you would in a prep. And it just adds to that, you know, mind warp of post show into then I'm going to gain weight, I'm going into an off season, how do I do this? And it's really, I find, quite a scary transition. So it's a really good topic to talk about, especially because the shows are all starting now. So
and you know, like the likelihood is, especially now that, you know, life is semi kind of coming back to normal and people are out and about, weddings are happening and dues are happening, and you know, the likelihood is something along at some point your prep's going to crop up that you're going to have to that you're going to decide whether you're going to go to or whether you're not, or maybe you have like a weekly catch up with your friends, and that involves going to your favorite wee cafe or something, or maybe you know, don't want to just like cut out all kind of nightlife, but instead it's maybe switching a nightclub for a cinema, for example, you know, like switching stuff like that. I remember back in my second season, and I swear to God that this whole season was about me learning how to go to social events, because I was at that time in a job. Well, I was working, doing a lot of kind of networking in my job as well. So I was doing a lot of meeting clients, meeting, you know, corporate people. I was taking teams out, and I had to do a lot of navigating around that, because of course the focal point of things like that was food, drinks, everything else. And that was really interesting, because you sort of find little things that help you keep on top of that. So like, I would find that in my bag, I would be taking all my sweeteners, my maybe sugar-free sauces. Obviously I'd prep my food and things like that. But then when I was going and having drinks or whatever, my go-to drinks were of course sugar-free drinks. Or if I was out for a really long period of time, I would make sure that I'd have like sparkling water, maybe just instead of like water, just things like that would help not disassociate me from the people that I was interacting with and make it comfortable, but keeping everything within the limits of what I was able to do at the time. And you have to navigate a lot of those awkward conversations, you know, like, oh, why do you do this? Like, this is so restrictive. Like, why aren't you eating what we're all eating? And do you not find that this is like really awkward? And, you know, all those kinds of questions. I don't know if you've had those sorts of things throughout.
Yeah, definitely. When I first started bodybuilding, even though I work in a leisure centre, so many people seem to have this almost problem with what I was doing, because they saw it as quite alien. No one's really in Bognor, there's not really many bodybuilders, and it was quite new to people that were around me. And of course, a lot of them, it was because they care about me, but seeing me get leaner and leaner and in essence restrict my food and increase my training, there is an element of worry there. And I think that's important to remember for people that are listening that are going through a prep or tracking their food, that a lot of the comments you get are because people care and they are worried about you. They don't understand it. So I almost, and I say this to my clients, I almost take it on myself that it's my job to try and inform them. If you, however, try and they don't take it on or they're not listening, you've tried with that person, and then potentially, you know, maybe try not to be around them too much. And if they then keep questioning it, you can say, look, I have told you before what I'm trying to do. You know, if you can just let me do what I'm doing, I'm really enjoying it. I'm doing it in a safe way. I used to always say, my coach is monitoring me. He knows exactly what I'm doing. He's the one putting the plan in place, you know. And I would explain a competition prep isn't the healthy, in inverted commas, of sports, but you know, I'm doing it in the healthiest way possible, if that makes sense. And they sort of, yeah, they get it because you're putting it in normal terms.
Yeah, and I think I was having a conversation with one of my clients this week, actually, who's about to go into prep, and we do a big piece around laying down the expectations. And one of those things are laying down the expectations with your closest, nearest, dearest around you. And in some respects, sometimes even your colleagues at work who maybe are not close, but they're acquaintances. So that from the get-go, you're saying, okay, guys, so I do this really crazy thing. It's called contest prep. And what's involved in contest prep is really specific management of my diet, my training, and sometimes just my my rest. So you're telling like your people around you, and kind of breaking it down into layman's terms, exactly as you've just said, that it means that all my food, so I've got a coach, or maybe you don't, but I've got a specific diet here that I've got to stick to. And it would be really great if you guys could, if the reason I'm telling you is so that you guys know, and that if you guys understand what I'm doing, you don't maybe offer me the biscuits in the I don't know, let's say the staff room if you're a teacher, or offer me ask me to go out after work for drinks, for example. I might be able to go, but just know that it might not be me sitting there enjoying half a bottle of wine with you. It's going to be me sitting there with a Diet Coke or whatever. And honestly, the chat that you can have, because a lot of people at first, especially first timers, and I'm a victim. Well, I say a victim, I've done this as well. There's something around bodybuilding where people feel like, I'm not telling anyone. I can't tell anyone. I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm competing. I'm going to keep it all to myself. And
feel bad. I don't want to pressurize.
Don't want to put pressure on yourself and everything else. And I get that point of it. I really, really do. And it's okay. But trust me, when you isolate yourself as much as that, and you don't tell anybody around you what you're doing, you will get the judgmental looks. You will get the kind of weird, like, what's she doing? Like, what's going on over there? And then you'll get those awkward questions. And you might go on the defensive to answer those questions. Whereas it's just exactly as what you said there, Sarah, where they don't know, they have no education of this, they have no knowledge of what this is. So their spiteful, their question in a bit of a spiteful tone might not be because they think you're a complete weirdo. It's probably because they're just like really, really worried, or like a bit like, what the hell are you doing, kind of thing. So it does come full 360 back about ownership of what you're doing. Tell people, and trust me, you'll feel so much more confident in your prep when you whip out your Tupperware box in the middle of your workplace, or you know, you're sitting on a Zoom call if you're online and you're eating away. Do you know what I mean? You'll feel so much happier doing that than not, and then trying to hide everything and trying to feel like, oh my god, what do people think of me, and feeling all that horrible judgment, which I've been there before as well.
I think we almost create it as a problem in our own mind, and then that then becomes a problem, rather than, like you say, taking ownership of that. And there's a lot of examples that we could probably share between us of how you can negate it and how it actually looks practically when you do socialize. I mean, one that springs to mind for me, I went to a hen do, and I really wanted to go. It was one of my good friends, and I thought, look, you're in prep, you could easily say no, but let's go for it. And I phoned the place where we were having food, and I just said, could I bring my food, and could you heat it up and put it on a plate and bring it out with the rest of them? And they were like, yep, that's absolutely fine. Now, again, when you go to restaurants and different places, the chefs are normally more than happy to cater for you. So whether that's they make the food or potentially like I did, take your food and they heat it up. And it's about asking the question, you know, there's no harm in doing that, giving them a phone call, just saying, I'm coming for, you know, with friends, with family, can you cater for me because I'm on a specific diet? I mean, that's quite a good way to get around it. If you tell them that you're on a specific diet, they're like, yeah, no problem. Because they don't want you to, you know.
They don't want that liability. Absolutely. Yeah. And some places won't let you reheat because of their like standards with putting your plastics in their microwaves or ovens and stuff like that. But most likely they'll be able to adapt the food or make it really plain. Or whatever else. Like I've had that as well, where I've gone to, you know, like I'm actually staying in a hotel in Glasgow right now, and you know, their whole breakfast buffet is everything's covered in oil. And I just specifically went to the woman this morning and asked her, can I just have 3 poached eggs, nothing on them please, just really, really plain, and a bowl of porridge made with half milk, half water, so that the specific, you know, just ask people. They know, and that came and it was perfect, and that's me now had my macros for my breakfast I'm quite happy with today, and I feel good about that, so without me having to have had to go and source it and, you know, everything else. So some things are easier than others, of course, you know, but it is, you're absolutely right, asking the question and planning ahead with social events.
And also, if you flexible diet like I do and you use something like MyFitnessPal, like me and Victoria, who listens to the podcast, we went to Wagamama's not long ago, and they're on MyFitnessPal. You can track it if you want to, you know, Nando's, even things like Domino's, Pizza Hut. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to look at the macros if you were going to have that. But, you know, there's so many options when you do go out for food. You know, Wagamama's, their chicken ramen's like under 500 calories and it's like 40 grams of protein. You know, it's obviously the sodium's a lot higher than what we're used to normally. Dean, who we had on last week when we went, because he's in prep, he was like, blimey, the sodium. We're like, we're the sodium gang, because you know that your weight's going to maybe fluctuate a bit the next day. And you know, stuff that would potentially freak you out, feeling like you've overeaten or done something wrong. But then the following day, the weight rebalances and everything's cool, but you can still, you know, he must have been like 8 weeks out, and you know, in the past I would have been like, there's no way I'm going out 8 weeks out, but you can, it's cool, you know, it doesn't have to be a problem.
No, not at all. And I think, you know, people like appreciate you still being at these social events or social things without, even if you are doing your thing, you know, you've got to remember, like, your friends and people around you still really value you as a person, regardless of what you're doing. And they love your company. They like you to kind of be involved in what's going on. And I'm sure that, you know, at certain points, particularly to the, you know, the latter phases of prep, you might not be quite as involved in social stuff. Unless you're like me in 2014, where I went to a wedding the day before my contest prep. My contest, actually, that was like the day before.
Oh, hold up. Actually, what about the people that have the cheat meal the night before?
Oh, well, that as well. Yeah.
So why did you end up going out?
Well, this was one of my closest, and I mean closest friends' weddings. And it was just, it wasn't even a question of I'm not going. Because again, this comes down to weighing up what certain life events mean to you, and remembering that some of these things you're never going to be able to do again. Now, in the case of that, this is Yona. She's my friend since school. We've grown up together. We've been to school together. All of us, there's a group of us from school that are still all very close, and we've all been to each other's weddings or divorces.com.
I was just thinking that.
No, I mean, I jest, but you know, we've all been to each other's big thing. And her wedding was the Saturday before my show on Sunday, and it was in 2014, and I made the trip all the way up to this beautiful little countryside town in Scotland. I was still living in Leeds at the time. I went all the way up. I was doing my whole carb up the last couple of days. I obviously was like completely like, oh my God, what the fuck am I doing? But I was there, and I remember it. And I remember, obviously, they all knew my show was the next day, so I wasn't going to be staying out to the little hours in the morning. But I went to the ceremony, had a wonderful time, saw all my friends, cried with them, laughed with them, had a great time. Got in my car and drove all the way back down to, I was staying, I'm pretty sure that was a Newcastle show, so I was staying around like the north of England at that time, and drove all the way down. And I remember driving all the way down really like calm, because I was like, that meant so much to me, and I'm so glad that I didn't not go, because I know I would have never experienced that again. So
100%.
That was a biggie for me. And I think that there's something to be said for that, because, you know, some things are never going to come around again. And is the bodybuilding show and just giving it up because you need a little bit of rest that night or whatever else worth it? Was my body maybe affected by that? Potentially. I still was very happy with how I looked. So but it was meaningful, and it was important.
Yeah, we said this last week with Dean, didn't we? I actually messaged him on the day of his show saying be present, because that hits home for us too. It's something we always try and get across. You know, prep is so good in so many different ways. Like for me, I just, you know, I love how productive you are, how good you feel. You're on a mission, the tunnel vision kicks in. And we've actually said it before when we had Rob Latty on. You know, tunnel vision is a good thing, but you also have a life and you are a person as well. And you can do things like incorporate, like you said, you might go to the cinema instead of go, you know, to a nightclub, or you might go for a really nice long walk and get your steps in and, you know, walk somewhere you need to go. Yeah. You know, take the dogs out, do different things. Lara and I were talking about this. We were like, should we go and get a cottage in the Cotswolds one weekend? Because expenditure goes through the roof. You can take your own food and stay in an Airbnb. And you can really, really immerse in quality time with people and be completely in control.
I'm back on. Yeah. I was just going to say that I love that, because you start to realize there's other things that you can do in your life that don't maybe always involve going to eat. So you could, like, because naturally as like humans, the thing we love to get together is go and have food, or go and have coffee, or but we never consider, right, let's just go and like park up at the nearest reservoir and go for a really beautiful, lovely long walk around it and just chat. Or, you know, in my previous preps, and my previous partner, he really loved walking, and it was something that I never was really that into. I could kind of take it or leave it, you know, going for like, I don't mean just nice like river walks, I mean like full on, let's hike up Mount Snowdon walks.
Oh god, yeah, I'm not sure about that either. That sounds like cardio.
Yeah, well, some of them were, but I have to say, I never thought like I would enjoy them to the point where actually it would get to the weekend, and where most couples or most people will go, right, where should we go out for food, or what should we do tonight? Or it was okay, which little Yorkshire town do we want to go to and have a walk and explore? Yeah. And really, really nice to do that, and to see new places, and to experience just life in without having to, I suppose, purchase stuff, buy stuff, have food, do things, because it's free. It's and free. Also, you can go and enjoy it.
Yeah, and you know, off the back of that as well, if you are having food, Ryan and I were talking about this the other day. So he's on a diet, and Joe gave him the option: would you want to take your off-plan meal out, or would you want? There was like 3 different options. How would you want to do it so we get you in a bit more of a deficit for he's doing like a tidy up and before he does another growth phase? And there was the option to then obviously have an off-plan meal that he makes at home. So, you know, rather than reduce his calories in the week, and, you know, have an off-plan meal at the weekend that's like from a restaurant or a takeaway or whatever, he decided that he'd do that. So he's going to make like burger and chips at home. So if you wanted to, you could then have people round for that. You know, you can invite people around for food, you can cook it, And something like burger and chips, people wouldn't even know. Like they'd be like, oh, this is really cool. Like I thought you were in prep. Oh no, we can have burger and chips. And they wouldn't know that you've used lean mince and like, you know, used an active fryer and put low calorie spray on it instead of olive oil, or these things. So you can definitely recreate in your own environment as well. So I definitely, you know, mention that to people, especially getting into the tail end of a prep. It's still an option.
Yeah, 100%. And when you're looking at like things like that, appliances that make food taste better, or you know, enjoy it, like it can look like a meal off, but not a meal off, if you know what I mean. Your air fryers, you know, we've got a Soda Stream, which makes really nice fizzy drinks that are sugar free, which is ace. So when you're traveling, maybe you're away like for a social event, or maybe it's a stay overnight thing, traveling, getting yourself like a plug-in fridge or like a plug-in cool box. I've got a plug-in cool box that I plug into my car, and I keep all my food like really fresh when I'm traveling. So there's things you can use that are going to make your food fresh, taste great, and look great as well, that can psychologically make you feel like you're having, just the food is more enjoyable, isn't it, when it looks nice and it doesn't look like just a poor little piece of chicken and a little potato in salad. A little box.
And I've got a microwave I take to all my shows with me, because I really like to have, you know, my cream of rice the night before, and then after the show, depending on if I'm competing again, I really love having my oats post show. But you know, things like taking a microwave with you, or like you say earlier, taking things like your sugar-free sauces, your sweeteners, all of these things that, you know, you can potentially be quite a normal person, really.
Or you know, if you're Sarah, who turns up at the WMBFK with a full lettuce
and like
no joke of a lie, listeners. Yeah, no joke of a lie. She walks into the foyer of the Hilton Hotel in Birmingham holding a freaking lettuce, and I burst out laughing. That was it. Rest of the
I was
day,
like, micros.
I've never looked at you the same again.
And that, like, everyone knows me for taking my light mayo, because mainly I know the calories in the full fat mayo, and I actually think the light mayo tastes better. So I always just take my own little. My mum actually got me a pot with like a little syringe bit on the end that I can fill up. She was like, it's going to be better to fit. Yeah, she's like, that will fit in your handbag much better. I'm like, she makes me die. But
can you all imagine Sarah's bad guys right now? She's got a syringe, she's got light mayo, and she's got a lettuce, right? I want all the lettuce memes on social media, people. If you're listening to this and there isn't a tag on my social media with a lettuce and Sarah's head, I will be disappointed.
I bet I can guess who will do that, but we will wait and see.
Let's go viral. Let's go viral.
It's also like, I guess, getting to know your preferences and being super cool with it. Like now, it's everyone's like, have you got your mayo? And it's like a normal thing. I remember my friend Joppo, when I first did it, he was like, they've got light mayo and Wagamama's. And he was like, that's fucking yours, isn't it? And I was like,
Sarah
sorry,
Parker's.
not sorry. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And it's, I'm like super cool with it now, but before it used to freak me out so much that I had preferences if I was out. You know, now it, like, I went to Bill's a couple of weeks ago and they come out and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make a few amendments. Can I have the broccoli with nothing else on it, just steamed? The burger with an extra chicken breast, no salad, no sauce? Can I swap it for the vegan bun, because I prefer that? Can the chips be extra hot, please? And they're like, yeah, okay. And I just know what I want. And I'm like, if I'm going to go out and pay 20, 25 quid for a meal, I want it how I want it. I'll just have it at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like that's again comes back to where the people you're with, like, if they understand what you're doing, they're not going to look at you like a weirdo. they're going to sit there and allow you to make all your special requirements top to toe, and then be like, oh great, Sarah's cool, she's happy, she's got what she needs.
We're all happy.
I think something that would be really helpful to touch on for our listeners when we're talking about socializing on prep is how to deal with some of those negative comments that you get. So this is really restrictive. So some of the things like I've got have always been, are you sure like you really want to do this? It seems like quite extreme. That's one I've got. When I've been really lean, obviously this isn't more so about the food, but when I've been really lean, I've actually had, and from a very close friend at the time, like, you're starting to look really manly. You're really muscular. You're starting to look really manly.
Thanks,
yeah. Cheers for that. Cheers. I've had the, like, oh, you must have to eat absolutely nothing to look like that. I've had that one, which is the total opposite. And I've had various others. I've had things like, you're looking really skinny, you look unwell. So let's maybe dig into some of those, and how do we deal with those from people around you? Again, going back to, I call people that aren't into this normies, my normie friends, or people who are just totally normal and don't have any understanding of what this is we do. So how would you manage some of those? I've got some ideas as well.
Yeah, so something that I sort of decided and learned in myself was to do my best to not be defensive and take it as a personal attack. And obviously, like I said earlier, coming from a point of they're not educated in what we do, and it's not coming from a bad place. And I sometimes try and think of these people when they say things. I think of my mum, because she legit doesn't really know anything about bodybuilding, only what I tell her, and still there's some confusion at times, and now I just get on with it and she leaves me to do it. So I always try and think, how would that feel if that was my mum asking me a question, if I was defensive and I then sort of attacked the person back, just from a point of, you know, they don't have the education into it. So what I would do is I would try and inform her and make it really, really simple, like stupidly simple, because you need to think these people don't actually know, you know, anything about the nutrition and the training that goes into bodybuilding. They potentially might only know what you tell them. They may not ever experience another bodybuilder. So I think simplifying it and being honest, but maybe not too honest sometimes, you know, like, you know, if you go in the office at work and you're like, I am in the fucking trenches. This is so hard. I feel like shit. If someone said to you, I feel like shit, this is really hard. I'm so hungry. I fucking hate my life. What would you do? You'd say stop.
Yeah,
so you need to remember what you're actually putting out as well, and that's a massive contributor when dealing with sort of gen pop and normies, as we say.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it depends on the sort of day it can catch you. Like, some days you can be really on point, like you're really confident, you're really strong, and then somebody says something like to you like that, and it's just like water off a duck's back. You're like, whatever, mate. You go on over there and do you. And then some days, you know, it can catch you when you are maybe a wee bit vulnerable, low that day, maybe you're just, you know, tired, whatever it is, and it can really get into you. It can really like get into how you feel about yourself, and it can make you question yourself. It can make you question like what you're doing. It can make you genuinely think like, oh my God, that must be the case. Like, I had a conversation with one of my clients on social media, or just on Instagram the other day, who said to me, oh, this guy told me that I looked like I have no muscle, basically, that I looked fat and watery and there was no muscle underneath anything. And I said, well, I asked her, it's like, who's this guy? It's just some guy. And I was like, well, okay, so do you value this guy's opinion? Like, is this person important? Is this person somebody who's, you know, knows what they're talking about? And she said, no, it's just like some guy in the gym. And I was like, well, what do you think it was that got to you? And she said, like, she had a day where she was just feeling really rubbish and she really let it get to her. And I said, well, it's at that point where you have to remember to take the advice from the people who actually you trust around you, and the people that you genuinely know, you know, have got your best interests at heart, because there's always going to be someone around the corner with an opinion. And I could write a like mile-long list of horrible little quips and shit insults and little things that people can say to you, but in the long run you've got to focus on protecting you and improving your responses and what you let in, because if you let these things in and let that random person who really doesn't care about you or anything about you allow to affect where you are in your life, then there's some lessons that you need to learn as well to actually start to think, okay, I have two options here. I let this in and I let it ruin my day and affect everything that I'm working on. Or I sit down and I actually ask myself, why did that bother me? And maybe I need to go and have a conversation with someone else around me who I trust, just to try and get this off my chest and open it up and discover more about that.
That's really good advice.
But I think what you've just said, Sarah, is perfect. Like, you need to remember that these people maybe don't have any idea. They're maybe probably most likely insecure themselves.
Yes.
And they probably have a need to feel better about themselves by pointing out something to try and put someone who's maybe showing confidence or showing progression or showing change down. And that helps them feel better about themselves for a moment. But in reality, does it really? No. And have they just, they've got some work to go away and obviously do on themselves as well. But
because we've obviously spoken about more people that are genuine and care about you, but actually you have got what you said, the people that are actually not very nice, and potentially they're then exposed in this type of environment, in this type of setup, and they're the people that you don't want in your life anymore. It's as simple as that.
You're absolutely right. And like, if I remember it, like somebody said to me a while back, a quote which I thought was really, really good: those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind.
Yeah.
And like, you have to kind of consider who's around you that you genuinely you genuinely respect and listen to, because you know that they are people that matter to you in your life. If it's somebody if it's some guy you're never going to see again in 2 minutes, like, what power are you giving to that? And it's really important that you kind of then have to sort of think, right, why am I giving that power? And then digging into that. And that's where, and I love this because one of my other clients, Adriana, said to me the other day that she's finding this particular prep, a very I don't want to sound all woo-woo here, but she's going through a real self-discovery on this prep, because she's starting to build that confidence in herself to expel what doesn't matter and to pull in what does. And I absolutely love that, because prep, it can be very, very, it can be one of the biggest things for your self-growth if you really start to jump into that side of it.
Yeah, because I guess for me, and I think we've probably mentioned it before, when you are, in a very big deficit, you're exercising a lot, all of your feelings become so much more apparent. But I feel like when you're in prep, you almost sometimes get a bit of an attitude as to, actually, I'm really fucking pushing myself here. I'm really wanting to develop myself. I'm going to take part in this extreme sport and compete. And those that don't take time to understand that, I don't actually want them in my life. And you actually become quite, I guess, dangerous, because those people, you can easily go, see you later, I'm moving on now, because you actually form, an inner circle of people that you actually care about, and they care about you, and it's like, this is pretty cool. I've spent so many years worrying what everyone else thinks, and now it's like, do you know what, the people that I've got around me, I've got plenty of people in my close circle, as it were, that I don't need anymore. But when someone comes along that is a true gem, someone that is, you get a real good connection with, you're like, come into the circle, come and experience what this should be like, it's relationships, as we've both spoken about before, coming away from relationships with, both of us being divorced and, going through that. I buried myself in bodybuilding for a lot of time, a number of years, and it's because I wasn't happy and being fulfilled in a relationship that I became so neurotic with the bodybuilding. And it wasn't until I was able to realize that actually, my internal happiness wasn't there. My happy place, which should be at home, which should be with someone I'm spending my life with, was no longer there. And it's hard when you get these revelations, friends that you've been with from school for 20 years, and you're like, do you know what, we don't actually have anything in common anymore. You're not my person, you're not my people. And it is hard, but in prep, you do become stronger and you get the realizations, and it's okay to feel like that. if you get these feelings come up in a prep, which I'm sure most of the listeners will at some point, if you're questioning a relationship or how you feel, I would say, have a think, you know, is this worth having a conversation with the person? Do you want to continue putting energies into it? If so, try and have the conversation, get things off your chest, move forward. If not, you know, work out whether you want them in your life anymore. And it is hard, but
Yeah.
I feel like bodybuilding gives you a bit of strength behind
It
realizing
does.
who you want.
It does. And I love that phrase, moving forward, because you've got to, in every area of your life, like, you know, life is not, you don't just start out with one group of friends and then end your life with one group of friends. That you're growing, you're growing up, you're moving into different phases of your life, whether that's, you know, through your adolescence, into your working life, into a different fields, into hobbies, into whatever it is. And then with growing up provides you new opportunities, new people to mix with, and you learn about yourself, don't you? And you learn about what you need from other people, and what you seek, like what values are really important to you in people and in yourself. And you're kind of almost on this little journey to find other people who match your values. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really gives you an opportunity to explore what your values really are. And you know, people who maybe don't agree with what you're doing, or people like going sort of full circle back to these horrible, nasty comments that people might have, you know, 95% of these people that have these comments are actually just confused admirers. They're just actually people who are like, oh my God, that person's doing something really different over there. I want to know what that is, but instead of being nice about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, why empower people? You know, why on earth would you want to empower someone? I always find, you know, like, I love empowering other people, and I legit love, you know, that relationship when you can get an equal balance of you're empowering them, they're empowering you. You have a really, you know, I've had tough times where I've leaned on you and opened up to you, and it's you've been there for me, and vice versa. And having those relationships where you actually just give a shit about each other, and there's no ulterior motive. It's like, why doesn't everyone do this?
You're 100% right. And you know, you've got to be forgiving of, like, everyone's on that journey somewhere different. Some people are still trying to figure out who they are, and maybe a lot of that jealousy, or if you want to call it that kind of hate or that spite, is just people trying to figure out what actually their values are. I kind of find that sometimes when you have a place, and even us, right, even I can, if you're scrolling on Instagram, or we've all been there, and I can't absolve myself from any of this either, but you know, you might at some point come across something and you just hit a nerve, and you're like, oh,
I'm really fucked off,
or that's really pissed me off, like that person's doing really well, like, oh my God, that's really pissed me off. And the thing is it's like having like anger towards everyone reaching, like having anger or stress towards like everybody or somebody achieving success is actually because inside you're reflecting on where you maybe want to do better, or maybe where you want to sort of strive to see, you know, more, I don't know, whatever it is, more progress in whatever area that you're looking at. And it's just a reflective tool for you to sort of sit there and think, okay, that person's doing great, and how does that affect me, and maybe what positives can I take out of that, rather than going, that person's got more than me, or that person's got this, or that person's got that.
Why do I instantly hate them?
Yeah.
I find as well, you know, I don't know if you get this, but I've had it quite a lot with friends from like school, or as we say, normie friends, that, you know, they're trying things themselves through mainly dieting and different things like Slimming Well, Weight Watchers, this type of thing. And I guess you'll probably agree, I'm going to assume that we probably wouldn't promote those types of diets just because of the way they're, you know, put together. It's not always the best way to lose weight, and you get a lot of yo-yo dieting and stuff. And when I've had friends or acquaintances in the past that do these diets, they go all in balls deep, and they do 6 to 8 weeks or whatever, and then unfortunately they fall off, then they go back and whatever. And each time, you know, I've had several friends that have done this cycle many times, and they say, oh, you know, it really worked. Oh no, my weight loss stalled, it doesn't work. And every time, consequently, I then socialize with them, the first thing they say is, I know I need to lose weight, you know, I've been trying this diet, oh, you do so well. And that was like then a foundation of, as soon as we meet up, and I'm like, do you know what, I just want to be your mate. I don't want to talk about slimming well and all the different diets. Have you had this before?
Yeah, it's like as soon as you're kind of in the fitness world or a fitness professional, you're there, all you then are one dimensional, and you just speak about food or training.
Yeah, and it's like, do you know what, you're actually a friend that's out of my normal, you know, bodybuilding circle or whatever, but I want to nourish and put things into this relationship, but you're making it really difficult, because I don't want to sit here and talk about how much protein you should have, and then you do the complete opposite. I want to sit here and talk shit, and and again, it can sometimes be from a point of it's their own thing, it's their own, I'm not going to say problem, but it's something they're trying to combat, and they're seeing you do it, but you're not doing it the way they do it, and they're then confused, and it then creates almost like this sort of friction there, and you're like, it gets easier with time when you're experienced, but
it does. I mean, with some people it almost becomes like a competition, and I'm sure some people have had friends in the sense, or people who do what they do and try to kind of almost mimic or do something but expect the same sort of results or whatever else, and that can be really awkward and difficult to navigate. And just right, I think we've said this like on a few pods before, but you really find out who your friends actually are when you do something like this. And if you're hanging around with people who give you this kind of grief, or maybe, I mean, not necessarily in that situation, Sarah, but like, that are not adding to your life, that are maybe more of a drain on your life, that are always negative, that always, they've always got something to say that's opposite to what you're trying to do, and it's constant, and there's no boosting or balance in the relationship, and it's all just kind of hitting or butting heads the whole time, then they're usually people that, to be completely fair with you, aren't going to really be around a long time within your life, unless you choose to keep holding on to that negativity. But I mean, it's that kind of thing. And I've had a few of those where at points where I've just been like, you know what, I've tried so hard, I've tried every tact I can with this person to show them that despite maybe some of the difficulties, like some of the negativity, I'm willing to look past that and continue this relationship and continue to build it. But then it gets to a point where it's like, it's just not changing, nothing's moving anywhere, and this isn't helping me anymore. I'm actually starting to resent this person because it's just pissing me off that I can't actually have a good chilled out relationship with this person.
Chill.
And you don't, the last thing you want to do, especially if you're in a contest prep, but even just generally, is you don't want to be pulled into that negative hole, because you are a product of the people you spend time with. You absolutely are. You will start, even on a subconscious level, you will start to change personality traits, start to change how you behave, start to change how you talk, start to change how you talk to yourself when you're around negativity like that.
Environment is everything.
Environment and people are everything. Environment and who you surround yourself with is vital for your just enjoyment of life and your progression as a person. Pretty sure somebody who wants to run a global business or whatever isn't hanging around with, I mean, I'm being careful with what I say here, but like,
but people that aren't striving for success, basically.
You know what I mean? It's like, of course, there's lots of varied people in your lives, and I'm not saying by any means that you should only just stick with one type of person. I'm just saying
only speak to bodybuilders.
I'm just saying that, like, you guys will know, sitting here listening to this, who that potential person is in your life, or maybe it's a few people or whatever, and we'll go, it's actually a really strenuous relationship. And ask yourself the question, is that a relationship you can sit down with that person and say, hey, I really want this relationship to work, but here's where I'm really at with this, and see if it can evolve anywhere? Or is it a question of going, do you know what, I can't deal with this anymore, like it's time to move forwards and continue building relationships elsewhere?
It's something that I sort of came to my awareness through my check-in with Tom this week. He said to me, I don't know how you do it, travel every weekend, do your food, nutrition, etc., etc. And then it went in through my mind, and I was like, the reason I can do it and I can continually travel every single weekend is because I know at the end of a 4 to 5 hour journey, my friend is at the end of it. And I'm so happy when I'm traveling there, you know. And I've really realized, especially since breaking away from my marriage, that the people you surround yourself with, it is fucking massive. Like, it's massive. And I cannot stress enough, you know, keep reviewing that, keep working out, you know, who the people you are that you want around you, your circle, and, you know, put people in there that you want to nourish, and they do the same back, and it feels so good. So, you know, when you think about, you know, should I message on Instagram someone that is doing a similar journey to me? Why not? You know, and it's so nice to, you know, make those bonds. And, you know, with the shows coming up, go and spectate, go to the expos. You've got Fit Expo coming up, things like this, you know, get involved, see what relationships you can find.
Yeah, and going full 360 back to like the topic of this, like socializing whilst on prep, trust me when I say it's going to be a damn sight more enjoyable, and you'll want to go and socialize with people that you want to be around. If the person who's not the negative, I'm on prep, this person's asked me, not sure. You know, but if you like that person, and that person's bolstering and then giving you like, you know, giving you support with what you're doing, you're more likely to go socialize with them. And remember, like, living well, being yourself, and if you're into this, lifting, training, feeding yourself like healthily, you will just grow and grow and grow as a person. And the people who want to revel in that and see you grow and will continue to grow with you, and the people who don't like that will make their true colors kind of shown, and then it's up to you kind of what you do with that. So the socializing thing will be much more fun with people that you really, really love and want to be around, and that they think, regardless of whether you do this and they don't, or whether they're a friend and they do this as well, they'll be there for you no matter what.
Yeah, find your people. Find your people. Yes. So I'm gonna wrap up with a quote that always rings true to me, and I love it. And it reminded me to, when you said, you know, a quote earlier, it reminded me how much I actually think of this probably on the daily, that opinions are not facts, take them in or let them go. And it's so true. Like, if you stick to your own, you know, your own moral compass, your own set of rules, you are happy and you're not intentionally hurting someone else, crack on, you know, enjoy your life and make the most of it. Be a bodybuilder, don't be a bodybuilder, you know, delve into it if you want to. And there might be people listening that maybe haven't competed before and they're just thinking about it. You know, start to process these types of thoughts that Steff and I have been talking about today, and take that ownership of where you want to go, but reach out to like-minded people and, you know, go for it.
Yeah, couldn't have wrapped that up better myself. You know, it's just an amazing experience, and it's a stage where if you decide to jump into this, or you're already in it, you're growing within it, you're finding more out about yourself, and you're surrounding yourself with people who do this as well. And then, like, my group of 8 school friends who often WhatsApp me, are you still building those muscles? Which is like, I think it's hilarious, but they, you know, they support me. And actually, what I'll do with this pod, if you guys like, I don't know where I'll put it, I'll probably put it on YouTube, but the day that wedding happened, right, I left, and those 8 girls, none of them do contest prep, none of them bodybuilds, none of them hardly even go to the gym. They all sent me a picture of them all outside with the bride. They were all standing in line, and they all had like their guns up like this.
Oh, I love this.
They sent me a gunshot with them all like bridesmaids and wedding, or like bride and everything. And honestly, tears rolling down my face. But that's the kind of people that you want. If your normal friends support you, they don't really need to have the ins and outs. They'll just support you. You know,
there's so much, like, even the support for this podcast, it really is starting to build now. We're getting so it's super cool. Like, I was speaking to John, one of our followers, and he sent in some questions before, and he was just like, this is the best podcast I've ever listened to. And I'm like, do you know what, honestly, it like literally warms my heart and my soul. I'm like, mate, you're an absolute legend, you know. And
John.
yeah, so all these connections that we want to build. So please keep sharing on your stories. You know, all we want to do is help you guys. And as always, topic ideas, anything you want us to cover, send them in, and make sure, you know, start looking at your calendars, see if you can come to some of your shows, Steff, WMBF. I'll be at the UK
come.
shows. You know, yeah, we're keeping an eye on our Instagrams as well, where we're at. It's here, there, and everywhere, but we would love to meet you all. So
absolutely.
thank you again for your support. We couldn't do it without you. And we look forward to the tags.
Tags. And remember the lettuce.